Late summer, 1944. A column of American M-4 Sherman tanks advanced slowly along a narrow country road near the French city of Liege. The air was warm, heavy with dust kicked up by the grinding tracks. On either side of the road, fields stretched outward, broken by hedgerows and scattered trees that limited visibility and concealed danger. Inside the tanks, the atmosphere was tense but controlled. Engines rumbled beneath layers of steel armor. Radios emitted short bursts of static. Every crew member remained focused, scanning their sectors, waiting for movement, listening for anything unusual. Because in war, silence is rarely a sign of safety. More often, it is a warning. And then, without any signal, without any warning, the silence shattered. Gunfire erupted from the left flank. Armor-piercing rounds screamed through the air. One Sherman was hit almost instantly. The impact was violent. Flames burst outward, consuming the tank as black smoke climbed into the sky. Inside the column, everything changed in seconds. Commands were shouted over the radios. Turrets rotated sharply. Gunners searched desperately for targets hidden behind foliage and terrain. Confusion threatened to take hold. But in the middle of that chaos, one man remained decisive. A tank commander ordered his vehicle to turn directly toward the source of fire, not away from danger, toward it. He was not a high-ranking officer. He was a staff sergeant, but in that moment, his authority did not come from rank. It came from experience, from confidence, from trust. His name was Lafayette Pool, and in less than 3 months of combat, he would build a record so extraordinary that it would define him as the most successful tank commander in American history. Lafayette Green Pool was born on July 23, 1919 in the small town of Odom, Texas. Life there was simple, structured around farming, routine, and community values. For Lafayette, childhood was shaped by one constant presence, his twin brother John. The two were inseparable in nearly every sense. They attended the same schools, shared the same responsibilities, and experienced life side by side. Growing up, they developed a strong sense of discipline and resilience, qualities that would later define their paths. After graduating high school in 1937, both brothers made the same decision. They would join the military. They chose the United States Navy, seeing it as an opportunity to serve and to build a future beyond their small hometown. But only one of them was accepted. John moved forward. Lafayette was rejected. A previous eye injury, something seemingly minor, was enough to disqualify him. It was a moment that changed everything. For the first time in his life, he was separated from his brother. For the first time, he faced uncertainty alone. Rejection can define a person's future. For some, it creates doubt. For others, it creates determination. For Lafayette Pool, it became a driving force. He refused to let a single decision define his life. Instead, he redirected his focus. He enrolled in college, studying engineering, applying himself to a new path while still carrying the desire to serve. At the same time, he discovered boxing. Inside the ring, he found a new form of discipline. Boxing required more than strength. It required control. It demanded the ability to remain calm under pressure, to think clearly while facing an opponent determined to overpower you. Every movement mattered. Every decision had consequences. These were lessons that extended far beyond sport. They shaped his mindset. They prepared him for something far greater. But even with success in the ring and progress in his studies, Lafayette felt incomplete. Because deep down, he knew exactly where he wanted to be. When the United States introduced the draft in 1940, he made his decision without hesitation. He volunteered for the Army. This time, he was accepted. Lafayette entered active service in June 1941, reporting to Fort Sam Houston in Texas. From there, he completed basic training and was assigned to an armored unit. Initially, he served as a mechanic. It was an essential role maintaining vehicles, ensuring tanks remained operational and ready for deployment. But it kept him behind the scenes, and Lafayette Pool was not a man who wanted to stay behind the scenes. He pushed himself forward. He studied every aspect of armored warfare, He learned how tanks functioned, not just mechanically but tactically, how they moved across terrain, how they engaged enemies, how they survived under fire. Eventually, he transitioned into a tank crew position, and from that moment, everything changed. Inside a tank, coordination was everything. 5 men working within a confined steel vehicle. Driver, gunner, loader, bow gunner, commander. Each role was critical. Each action depended on the others. There was no room for hesitation, no space for error. Lafayette understood this immediately. He trained relentlessly. He demanded discipline. He enforced precision. Because in combat, even a single mistake could cost lives. Training continued across multiple locations. In California, crews endured harsh desert conditions, where heat and dust tested both equipment and endurance. In Pennsylvania, structured exercises refined coordination and combat readiness. Day after day, repetition built instinct. Actions became automatic, responses became immediate. By 1943, Lafayette and his unit were deployed to England. The invasion of Europe was approaching. During this period, Lafayette was offered a commission as an officer. It was an opportunity many would have accepted without hesitation. Higher rank, greater authority, but it came with a cost. It meant leaving his crew behind. He refused because he understood something fundamental. Leadership was not about rank. It was about responsibility, and his responsibility was to the men he had trained with. His crew reflected that philosophy. A driver known for calm precision under pressure. A gunner with exceptional accuracy at long distances. A young bow gunner, barely 17 years old, eager to prove himself in combat. And a loader who had chosen military service over prison, seeking redemption through duty. Individually, they came from different backgrounds. Together, they became a unified force. A team that trusted each other completely. On June 24, 1944, they landed in Normandy. The war was no longer preparation, it was immediate, it was real, and it was unforgiving. Early in combat, their first tank was destroyed. The impact was sudden and violent, but the crew survived. And survival meant one thing: they would continue fighting. They were issued a replacement tank. They gave it the same name. In the mood, because their mindset had not changed. If anything, it had only grown stronger. As Allied forces pushed through France, Lafayette Pool's reputation began to grow. Again and again, his tank was placed at the front of the column, the spearhead of the advance, the first to encounter enemy resistance. This position carried the highest risk, but it also required the highest level of confidence. During the Battle of the Falaise Gap, his aggressive tactics became unmistakable. He did not wait for the enemy to act. He acted first. He pushed forward into resistance, forced engagements, and disrupted enemy positions before they could fully respond. In Belgium, near the city of Namur, his crew faced one of their most intense engagements. Enemy forces had established strong defensive positions. Armored vehicles, anti-tank guns, and infantry units were positioned to stop the Allied advance. But Lafayette did not hesitate. He maneuvered his tank carefully, using terrain for cover. He identified targets quickly, communicated clearly with his crew, and executed attacks with precision. By the end of the day, 16 enemy vehicles had been destroyed. It was not luck. It was coordination, discipline, and leadership under pressure. But his most defining moment came near the city of Liege. A German Panther tank had taken position against his column. The Panther was a superior machine in many ways. Heavier armor, more powerful gun, greater effective range. At long distances, it held a clear advantage over the Sherman. Lafayette understood the situation immediately. There would be no margin for error, no second opportunity. He located the enemy position, estimated the distance, 1,500 yards, ordered an armor-piercing round to be loaded, and gave the command to fire. The shell crossed the battlefield in an instant and struck the Panther directly. A single shot, a decisive outcome. From that moment on, his reputation was undeniable. His crew gave him a nickname, War Daddy, because wherever the fighting was most intense, he was there, leading from the front. But war is unpredictable, and even the most skilled commanders cannot escape its dangers forever. On September 19, 1944, near the German border, Lafayette Pool's combat run came to an end. A hidden anti-tank gun opened fire. A shell struck his tank. The explosion threw him from the turret. He hit the ground with devastating force. His leg was shattered. Still conscious, he injected himself with morphine to manage the pain. Even then, he called out to his crew, his puppies. A second shell struck the tank, overturning it. His crew escaped and found him nearby, severely wounded but alive. As they carried him away, he spoke words that revealed his mindset completely. "Take care of my tank." In just 81 days of combat, his record became legendary. 12 enemy tanks destroyed, more than 250 armored vehicles eliminated, over 1,000 enemy soldiers killed, and hundreds captured. He survived the war, but not without cost. His leg was amputated. Recovery was long and difficult. Yet even after everything, he continued to serve, training others and sharing his experience. He eventually retired, having completed a remarkable military career. On May 30, 1991, Lafayette Pool passed away at the age of 71. But his legacy endures, because history remembers those who act when others hesitate, those who lead from the front, and those who face danger without stepping back. Stories like this remind us that history is shaped not just by strategy, but by individuals who make decisions in moments of chaos. So what do you think? Was Lafayette Pool the greatest tank commander of the war? Or is there another story that deserves recognition? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more powerful historical documentaries like this, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the next episode.